Hello. Hello. One moment. Okay, there we go. Sorry. I'm sorry. I had my headphones weren't working. 1 second. Let me turn them up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Ah, I turned my headphones all the way down. That's why. All right. I thought I wasn't on. Good morning, everybody. There we go. We are on. I'm on. I'm seeing coming through. So hopefully you are hearing me too. Right. We are here today for day 2 of Mastering Marketing Analytics. Business metrics, practice and application, day 2. Hopefully quite a lot of application as we've done earlier, as we did yesterday. So here I am. Good morning. Hello. I just want to do, well, here's the agenda for today. I think we've covered this yesterday and you have the notes. Hopefully, Marion, hopefully we have distributed the notes for today. If not, maybe put the link up in the chat so that everyone has the notes all ready to go for today. Because I'm afraid it's a little bit more complicated, today, because we are going to be delving into a little bit more advanced topics. So yesterday we did sort of an overview, and I'll do a review shortly of what we talked about. We did an overview of digital marketing analytics as a whole. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about specific topics or specific things that you do digital marketing analytics, including analyzing your audiences, looking at your channels, analytics, very important. Analyzing conversions in a few interesting ways, which you may not have thought about before. And then we will end with a part on operational analytics. And some of that is just download. You just have to download some of the other stuff that people do when they do analytics. And we will, along the way though, we will try to have exercises. I focused today more on exercises because those seem to be a bit more appealing than doing the quizzes. Although I do have a few quiz questions that I can get out if we have time. So don't worry if you're worried about not having enough quiz questions. I've got some. I seem to be have drifted over a bit. 1 second. Let me just fix this. There we go. All right, much better. Okay. So yes, audience, channel, conversion, and operational analytics today. All very more specific stuff, but don't worry, we will handhold you all the way through. We will be using Google Analytics again, though. So if you are having trouble, you might want to crack that out. Let me just put the link in the chat. Hold on, my link is about a mile long. I think if we just do this, then if you click on that, you should just open up the same browser and it should be open up your account again. There shouldn't be any problems getting back in because Google uses cookies themselves. It identifies your browser. It remembers you, just like it remembers you to advertise to you. It also remembers you to log you back in. So it all works very well. So yes, the summary from yesterday. Here we go. Let me just see if I maybe, you know what, I'm going to turn myself off because I see I'm blocking some of the text. All right. Analytics. What is it? I want everyone to leave a course about analytics can just say, I know what it is. And analytics is about understanding the past so we can predict the future. I used to have in there understanding the past using data to predict the future. But my feelings now are that data is part of it, but it's also the analyst skills and the tools you use. And I thought, oh, that gets a bit long. So really, it's understanding the past using everything that you can that's useful. Not just using your own opinion, but understanding the past using data, your skills and tools, and then doing some sort of prediction of the future. If you're not predicting the future, you're just really reporting. You're not doing the analysis. Now, to do analytics, so that is what analytics aims to do. But to do analytics, you have to use statistics. And there's a lot of things that are statistics. I talked a little bit about polling, about how we might use a little bit of statistics in order to generalize about a whole population. But I would say the most important thing about statistics is this idea of a statistic. It is about taking a lot of data, which we can't read. We can't do anything with data. Data is too big. Our brains can't handle it. But with statistics, we take that data and we boil it all down into a number. We tell people that there has been for a count, we say this is how many people converted. We do a sum. This is how much money we've made. We've made a total amount of this money. Or we do a mean, the average. These were the average page views. So this was the average order value of people who bought something. And the mean is probably the most interesting of all of these because it gives you some notion of what to expect in the future. Okay. So that is what statistics is. So analytics is predicting the future. Statistics is how we do it. And it's best done by coming down with a really simple number because that's what people understand best. Also, you can use visualizations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that today. Then what do we do to be effective to really help the business? Well, we need to have some sort of response metric, something that we want to change in the world that the business cares about. And I listed a few of these. Reach was one. If you're a luxury brand or a car brand or even a consumer packaged goods brand, something that doesn't really have an easy conversion point online, reach would be an important thing. It could be conversions if you're like any other online business or e-commerce, or average order value, another one for e-commerce. These are numbers that the business cares about that you want to move. However, they're not easy to move directly. You can't just go, right, today I'm going to increase conversions on my site. It's not like that. It's not like that. Instead, you have to find things that you actually can influence and track those. And this could be impressions. For example, if you want more reach, you have to track how many impressions you're getting. You can work on getting more visits to your site by improving your ads, getting more clicks, or improving your offer, getting more clicks. And then time on site or average, or product page views or something that could relate to your average order value. These sorts of things can be related. And some of that is just you figuring out how those two things are related. But you have to have the thing that you want to change, yes, and the way that you're going to do it, which is your explanatory metrics. Now, one way to improve things is to take your scorecard metrics, those big numbers, your conversion rates, for example, or your visitors or whatever. Conversion rates is a good one. Let's look at conversion rates. And you divide it up. You divide up conversion rates into some dimension, like country. I keep using that as an example. So we have your conversion rate by country, and you can see that Malaysia, for example, converts at 1%, whereas Singapore converts at 2%. And that will help you figure out what you should do next. You go, maybe I should try to get Malaysia people to convert at 2% because there's no reason why they shouldn't. These sorts of things can be done with a little bit of analysis, and it can push you in the right direction. And hopefully through yesterday, and through the second half of yesterday especially, we understand that Google Analytics is a free and great tool. And it hooks up very easily to any website. And for almost any business, it provides really useful information. Okay, it provides information about your people who visit your site, their behavior, where they came from. Remember in the acquisition section, we saw that, so you can review your channels. It tells you about how something about them, some sort of mysterious way of finding facts about your audience, their gender and their age and things like that. And then also you can do conversions. You can look at conversions and see how much people are converting on your site for all sorts of different goals you may have. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to leave you with, is that analytics is as a practice is a very good way to sort of get a leg up in an organization and really make a difference, I think. And Google Analytics is a particularly good tool, even for businesses who don't think about selling a lot of stuff online. You can do all sorts of other things. You can measure, how much people come to your site and do other things rather than buy. And so hopefully that gave you some idea of a good overview of analytics. Whereas today I want to delve a bit more into the marketing side, and we will start off by looking at the audience analytics. And I think maybe I can turn myself back on. There we go. So I've talked a lot about dimensions. There's another sort of aspect of dimensions called segmentation. And let me just try to explain it as best I can. So what I'm going to do here, is there's a lot of detail here. And I was reviewing this last night and thinking, well, how much of this detail can we absorb? And I know it's hard if you're not doing marketing all the time, or even if you are doing marketing all the time, some of this stuff is pretty far out there. So what I'm going to do, what I decided to do, is that it will be good to cover even the advanced topics, just talking about them. You don't have to memorize them. I'm not even going to quiz you on them. I just want to go through them so you can see sort of how far this subject goes. And then we're going to pull it right back. And we're going to use Google Analytics for some exercises to just sort of get an idea of how you might do some more easy segmentation, not as crazy complicated. Because some of this stuff gets into real, data analytics types. But I thought it was important to show you sort of like the frontiers. I mean, what some of the other big brands are doing with segmentation, just so you have a whole view of what segmentation means to marketing, because it is an extremely important topic. So if you remember, I said, when you're an analyst, you're trying to cover everything, you kind of have to use what's called Occam's razor and cut down and make sure that you don't try to do literally everything, because it can be a bit too much to try and look at everything, all of your data that you could possibly get, and try and analyze it. So instead, what I think you should do is have some sort of model and go, right, I look at impressions to try and get more reach. I look at the ads to try and get more clicks. I review how much time people have spent on the site. So hopefully I can get them to convert more. And maybe I have even an e-commerce and I do look at product reviews. I have like sort of instead of a model, maybe we call this a portfolio. I have a portfolio of things that I do and I work on. And so that I don't get overwhelmed. I don't end up in analysis paralysis. And it's a really good way to sort of focus your analytics and make sure that you're making a difference, right? You're helping the business get more reach, more conversions, higher average order value. All these things are really good for businesses, but you're not trying to do a million things and not accomplishing very many. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. Okay. Now the other way of improving things is to really focus on your audience. And this is by taking a main scorecard metric like conversion rate. I think would probably be a good one. You can do it with reach. You can do it with average order value too. But I think most people, when they think of doing segmentation analysis, they would probably look at conversion rate, because that's what the business really cares about. Maybe revenue, but conversion rate is the big one. And then you want to look, and then you want to see, which sort of segments are performing well, and then try to see what other segments aren't performing well. And you will try to divide up the data in many different ways to see if you can find, one segment that's outperforming another. Because a lot of times when you divide up your data, you'll find that most of the segments perform the same. Like men and women typically convert at the same rates. It's really not that big of a difference. Maybe you get some difference between very young people and very old people, but sort of in the age of like 25 to 55, people convert at largely the same rates up across many different categories. And so you just keep chopping and changing, and you're looking for something to try and identify if there's a group that converts well better than another. That's the heart of segmentation, is to, the analysis is just to try and find whether or not try to find a group that outperforms other groups, and then trying to figure out why. Now, yeah, so we try to compare the segments. Now here we have one example of a segment where you could say, yeah, there's sort of a big difference here. And this is from Google Analytics, obviously, and it's from the Google Merchandise Store, because they provide us with all this great data, so we might as well use it. Here we see we've divided up by a dimension called device category, which you might want to remember for later. just remember that. And what we see is that people who are on their mobile convert at, let's see, is my mouse working today? No, it's decided to go off again. Okay. One second. I'm going to figure out why this pointer works sometimes and sometimes not. Ah, is it on here? No. Hold on one second. Weird. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, now it's back. Oops, sorry. Okay, interesting. Okay, so anyway, there we go. This is what I wanted to look at. Let me just click myself off since I'm covering up the most important bit here. All right, so here we go. This is it. What I wanted to show you is that the e-commerce conversion rate for desktop was 0.07%, 7 out of 10,000. And the conversion rate for mobile was 0.35, which is 35 out of 10,000. And so we have 5, if somebody comes in a mobile, is 5 times more likely to convert. And, you want to take this information. Oops, that is cut off. Hold on one second. Sorry. Now I've got one thing working and then another thing stops working. One second. Let me just. Okay. Then there we go. Perfect. Exactly. Okay. And so then you go, well, you ask yourself, well, why? Why would mobile people convert more than desktop people? And for Google's case, I don't know. I mean, I think probably it's because people who are on desktop, I think I said this yesterday, are like us. They're just sort of having fun and looking at Google Analytics and trying to learn analytics. And so we're not really in a buying mood. Whereas people who are on mobile, maybe they've come from a Google search. They really are looking for that Google mug or YouTube mug, as we looked at yesterday. And they really are much more prepared to buy. In which case, there's probably not a lot that Google can do about that. But in your case, it almost certainly will be something you can do about it. And I would say this to me, this example here, this I would say goldmine. To see a 5 times differential between 2 very obvious different groups provides you a wealth of opportunities to try and make a difference. And what could you do to align them? Well, you could advertise more to desktop users. It's something that you can do. You could check out the site in desktop and see, what could possibly be different. And trust me, if it's a 5 different times differential, you'll find something. You may find that, I don't know, that the mobile user experience is just really, really good, and then you have to just change your desktop experience. Yeah, all sorts of things can be going on here. But what the thing is about the analyst is you're trying to look to see if you can find a group that has a material difference, and then exploit it and try and do some work in order to improve trying to decrease the gap. So you won't get this to 30.35 immediately, but you may get it to 10, or you may get it to 15. You may double the propensity for people from desktop to convert. And you've made a material difference just through some very, very simple analysis. Now, this gets a little bit harder. Okay, so this is Google Analytics, and this is what we'll go back to. This is kind of a little bit easy, kind of a little easy to understand anyway. Not easy to do necessarily, but easy to understand. When you're sort of doing a bit more deeper segment analysis, you may use all sorts of different attributes. Okay. Now, these are the 4 main ways of segmenting an audience. So you may look at demographics, which are things that people can't easily change, which is their age and their gender and their income. And typically, I find these are fairly good ways of dividing up groups. Gender not that great. Men typically don't perform different than women. Very old and very young tend to be quite different. Income is good. Income is good, and you shouldn't make assumptions about income. People with low income purchase very expensive items. People with high incomes can be very tight with money. It's not necessarily that. But you will find that they may shop differently. They may behave differently. They may be looking for different things. And so you may find that your site appeals to high income people and doesn't appeal to low income people, or vice versa. And so that could be a good way of finding things out and finding out the difference. Geographic, another good way of segmenting, absolutely. So I'm really quite in favor of looking at things at a country level. And most marketing teams and organizations I know in Asia very much focused on delivering the right value to the customers. Often have regional offices that help localize things, and I think people are pretty good on that in this region. Where people don't do a lot of work though is down here on behavioral, where you might actually look to see, is there a something we can do for people who are returning customers? Are there something we can do for people who are big spenders or little spenders? Sort of stuff where we already have information about our customers, and exploit that to see, do people who, let's say, for example, we have average order value of $100. And what that means is we have, some people who are, I don't know, spending, 200 or 250, and some people are spending like 30, $40. And, what we could do for the behavioral segmentation is just have a look to see, are people who are spending low amounts of money converting very high, people are spending high amounts of money converting low. And is there some way that we could get the big spenders to convert more? Or the other way around, anything, but to just look at how people are, buying things at our store, and then trying to see if there's a differential that we can exploit and work on. And then finally, probably the most complicated one is that orange one there on the left, which is the psychographics. And psychographics are your belief system. It's what's in your head. Okay. And I think probably the best example of this is that, you can have the same person, let's say a middle-aged man who is, works a job and is a father, whatever. And one could be a sports enthusiast, an extreme sports enthusiast, runs marathons and whatever. And another one collects stamps. And, and if you can identify, these two different people, even if they have everything else in common, you may be able to appeal and see, or maybe able to divide up the audience and see that, one, the stamp collector, is more interested in the detail of whatever it is you have. The sports enthusiast is more interested in like the badge value of what you have, and you could try to segment and see if you can get one to perform as well as the other. And so there is some element of that, but I'd say that's fairly that's pretty deep. I'd say if you can, the demographics, geographics, behavioral, if you can master those, you're probably doing pretty good. And psychographics, probably a bit more an advanced topic, a bit more an advanced one to work on. Now, how do you segment? How do you segment? How do you come up with all the stuff? Well, we are very lucky with Google Analytics because they do give us some of this data already. But in general, what we need to do is we need to look at, actually, I'll come back online here. We need to look at the different types of data that we can have. And in order to, so this is why marketers are so obsessed with data these days, because it allows them to build better and find and build more useful segments in order to improve their marketing. And, I guess, there really is no, most organizations will have their own first party data, right? They will have a list of their customers. They will have some sort of CRM system, or they have their web data, or they may even have a marketing automation system, which collects, sort of web usage versus their customers' profiles. And so they will be collecting data on customers all the time, and they can use that. They can use that for segmentation. I'll get to in a little bit when we talk about, for example, email segmentation, all based on your first party data that you generate and own. Okay. Now, I'm going to skip second party for a minute and just go over to third party data. And this is data that it will be provided by somebody else. Okay. Now, a lot of what we get from Google Analytics is really third party data. Okay. A lot of what Google Analytics will tell us is stuff that is generated by them. It's impossible for us to get. And so we're reliant on them. And so with first party data, we can be fairly sure of that it's good data, that it really represents our customer base. Okay. And so we should always try to capture as much first party data as possible. If you have any opportunities to survey your customers or to fill out some sort of form about them, or to fill up your CRM with more data, do so, because then you know the data is reliable and it's really useful. It's really useful for discovering these segments that I talked about. However, if you don't really have a lot of customer data, perhaps you're a some sort of consumer goods company, whatever, and you don't really collect customer data, then you're going to be utterly reliant on third-party data in order to do your segmentation analysis, in order to figure out who it is that's buying your stuff and who isn't, and to try and make up the gap. Now, in the middle there, we have second-party data, which is sort of there for just completeness. It's not something that's commonly used, but it would be where you run a sort of a promotion with another brand. So say, for example, an insurance company and, I don't know, a sports drink company or whatever, run some sort of co-promotion, and they share data with each other. Okay, they I don't know, one, the bank sponsors a marathon that the drinks provider runs, whatever, and all of the marathon runners' data then gets sent over to the bank, and the bank can then use that and add to their customer database. Oh, look, all these marathon runners we have, and then also go, whoa, look, we have all these customers who could potentially be ours, and they're all marathon runners. Let's try and approach them with something about marathons. But anyway, it's just a way for different businesses to, when they share data with one another, they just call it second party data. So it's like first party data that's gathered by somebody else and not you. And so generally very trustworthy, very reliable, but kind of hard to get, and a lot of nuisance. So in general, I would say focus most on trying to collect as much data on your customers as possible, or as legal, and then that you can use for your segmentation. Okay, and customer surveys are great for this sort of thing. Customers love to tell you about themselves, and especially when you give them an opportunity to influence the brand, or maybe get some free stuff and whatever. And any of that data can be used to try and figure out who is our best customer, and can we get more like them, or can we get people who aren't like them, or why aren't we getting people who aren't like them? All right. Right. As I said, there's a lot of sort of talking here, and don't worry, we'll get to an exercise soon. So improving our marketing performance using segments. Okay. So there's some methods for each channel that you will use in order to improve your marketing. Okay. You will use segmentation for different channels. And these are the main things that people do in marketing, I think, which is where you're either on social media, you're doing some sort of paid search, maybe you're doing improving your website, or email marketing, and each of these offers opportunity for finding an audience which is underperforming. And let me just go through these before we get into our exercise. First of all, social media advertising. I probably should have done a poll. Oh, well, too late. Anyway, how many people have done social media advertising? Probably a lot. Most brands have done some sort of social media advertising, and it's really good. It's a really good way to reach consumers. It's where they spend their time these days. When we look at, I think the most recent polls I've seen for the post-COVID world, they say consumers on average above the age of 18 are spending around 2 hours a day on social media or messaging. And I just think, yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity, because your social media advertising gets put in the feed, and I think people really do pay attention to it, read it, watch the videos, click on things, whatever, as long as it's engaging. And so I think it's fertile ground for advertising and drawing people away from social media, getting them to your site. But the thing is that's really important to get right about social media is making sure your segmentation is correct, because you can target all sorts of different attributes of people. Some of them are more useful than others. Now, one thing that Facebook and Instagram in particular get right is demographics. Facebook is founded on the principles of people's real identity, and strives very hard to make sure that sort of fake people aren't on the platform, or that people aren't misrepresenting themselves. And so you can target demographics very, very well. So if you are looking for females aged 40 to 45, for example, very narrow segment, you can get it on Facebook. Okay, males aged 21 to 23. These sorts of segments used to never really be possible before. It used to be very difficult to segment that narrowly. And since Facebook has focused on making sure that people's real identity and real age and real gender and real this and real that is represented, all of a sudden the world has opened up to really, really detailed targeting. Now you do have to be careful, because I would say in general, for most brands, it's not really necessary to get somebody 21 to 23. Normally you can do 21 to 30 or even 21 to 55. And, and each of these, different people, different people of different ages will be responding in very much the same way. But you may have some instance. You may have something where it's particularly appealing to, say, school leavers. People are just finishing school or university, in which case, yes, absolutely, it would be very applicable to have a very narrow thing. And this is what Facebook is good for. And all of Facebook's demographics, or most of Facebook's demographics, do get carried over into Instagram. They definitely seem to be able to identify people on both networks, and they certainly encourage people to link their accounts. And so when you're advertising on Instagram, you can almost be sure that you're going to get as good of response as you do on Facebook. Facebook also offers, location one is brilliant, because you can do, especially in a larger country like Malaysia, you can do actually, I think even in Singapore now, you can do micro-targeting, where you can target particular areas. Now, if you have determined that one of your underperforming segments is, say, I don't know, people in the suburbs, or people in high density urban areas or something like that, and you decide that, some sort of geographic segmentation is worth it, Facebook can help, because you can target the underperforming segment with I think with a 1 kilometer radius or something. I mean, something ridiculously small. And so it can really help with location as well. But of course, if you are doing things on a country basis, yeah, absolutely perfect. And then finally, Facebook also says it can identify segments based on interest. So this is getting into the psychographic world that I talked about before. And I think some of that is a bit overblown, because people don't generally register their interest. They will click on things and like things and view things, and Facebook tries to infer from that some of this behavior what people are really interested in. And just like Google, where they identified that I like boats, a lot of times I think Facebook will over index people on various interests. And so I've not personally found that particularly useful. I think that the age, gender, location works excellent on targeting on social media, and can really help you do your segment analysis. But look, interests, I'm not so sure. Your LinkedIn is probably one underused one if you have any sort of product for people who are professionals, or people who have a lot of money to spend. I think it's still quite good. People do go on it. It's kind of like a Facebook for work. I don't think it's so much just job recruitment anymore. I think people go on it generally to sort of find things out about their career and about their industry. It's expensive, but I've found good response from people when you're targeting based on the job that they do. It also offers demographics, location it's fine on, but certainly things like age and gender, I haven't found it very useful. But if you need to target anything for B2B, I'd say LinkedIn is definitely far better for your segmentation than Facebook. Twitter offers your ability to segment based on topics and who they're following and stuff like that. And I'm sure it probably has some value or whatever. Maybe if you're really just want to hit a tech audience or a marketing audience or something like that. But I'd say in general the reach is quite low. So I think the variance of who you're going to reach is going to be quite high. So I'm not sure that I would use Twitter for segmentation analysis. Now, the last bit I just wanted to say there, so this must be done before your ad campaign. So the way that this would work generally is that you would say, right, I feel like I have this underperforming segment, say, I don't know, people who work in a particular area, like the central business district. And you would you'd set up your normal campaign, and then you'd set up a highly targeted campaign for, say, that geographic area. Or you might say, again, that idea of the males 21 to 23. You'd set up the campaign specifically for that, and then you would do the high targeting of the campaign before you started. And then you would measure, whether or not that demographic is actually overperforming or underperforming on your target, and then, make your remedies to fix that. So yeah, it works best if you do your analysis beforehand. There is some post campaign segmentation available, which is kind of like Google, because obviously in Google people visit your site. We don't know anything about them beforehand, but we can kind of figure it out afterwards. They do that a little bit on Facebook and Instagram, of course. But if I recall correctly, it really is very, very limited. And I think maybe you can do broad age groups and gender, and that's about it. So most of it has to be done before, and it has to be done with careful planning if you're going to do your segmentation analysis on social media. Paid search. Usually half of people's digital marketing budgets. And really, the way that paid search does segmentation is through the keywords. For those of you who aren't familiar, when you go on Google and you search, you see ads. Okay. Why do you see ads? Well, somebody's bought the ads, yes. But the reason why you're seeing a particular ad is because they have what's called bid on your keyword. So when you search on dogs, somebody has bid on dogs. When you search on, I don't know, used to be flights and hotels, somebody has bid on the flights and hotels. And so what you can do is you can segment, and you might say, I want to find people who are, I don't know, interested in cats, for example. And maybe, you have a set of keywords all about cats, in which case you're identifying the cat segment. And this would be kind of like a psychographic segment of people who are cat lovers, because really any demographic, any location could be a cat lover, right? And so the segmentation is done based on what you anticipate people are going to search on, and then you can see what the general performance is. Now, another way to do this is to segment your paid search based on whether people have visited your site before. So a behavioral segment. You could say, show these words to people who haven't visited my site before, 50% off. And show show this ad to people who haven't visited my site before, 50% off. And for people who have visited my site, show them an ad saying, hey, please come back, or something like that. And so then you could see if there's a performance difference between people who have visited before and who haven't. But I'd say it's a bit of a stretch that, I'd say more in general, you would use Google Ads to try and divide up your audience by what you think they're going to search on. So you would divide up, I don't know, for somebody researching, I don't know, for researching a trip, whether they, people who are looking for good value, they might search on cheap, right? Whereas other people who are, maybe looking for more, I don't know, more luxurious things, you might have some sort of more luxurious terms in there, like luxury holiday. And so then you could divide up the two audiences there and see whether the cheap people are outperforming the luxurious people or the other way around. This would be the way to use paid search for segmenting an audience and to improve that. Now, email is possibly one of the most interesting platforms for segmentation, and I really encourage everyone who's done this course and does any email marketing to take a new look at your email database. I think it's probably a treasure trove. It's really, usually has a lot of information that can help you find new audiences and improve your overall marketing results. Now, first and foremost, demographics. So you have somebody's email, yes, okay. You have some demographic information, probably. If not, then I advise, hiring somebody or having an intern go through your CRM and trying to add some more information for every email. How you do this? Well, some of it is just, some is just research. It's just, you look at the names. You might look at their LinkedIn profile or their Facebook profile if it's public, and you just try and figure out a little bit more about them. And this is something that's very normally done, just done in research, because the more information that you can add about a person to their email address, the better you can target them and give them more appropriate offers. And so another way of doing this is through a contest, where you email everyone on your list, say we're having a contest, you just fill out this form, please, gather some information on it. It can be a pretty cheap way to do that. Or you can even sort of go into the company database and have a look and see, what their, we have an email address, let's associate it with what they've bought from us, right? And maybe you can do some analysis on, people who have bought a particular product. It might be a particular type of person or a particular demographic. And so, any sort of analysis on that where you can value add to your email address then makes it much, much easier for you to both find segments, because you can look at performance, and then exploit them and try and improve your marketing through, I don't know, trying to raise up people who are, I don't know, cat people. Maybe send more cat emails to the cat people and try and get them to buy more cat products, right? You can, if you know who they are, then you can do these things. Now, there's two other things here, and I'll talk about RFM in a minute. And it's sort of linked to this, but I'll talk about propensity to engage. So this is a, excuse me, this is an email trick I learned from eBay. And what they did is when they would do their email marketing, they would divide up their email segments into people who were likely to click on emails, people who were unlikely to click on emails, people who were never, ever click on emails. And then they would have different subject lines. Okay. So the people who like to click on emails or whatever, they would have a lot of information. The people who rarely clicked on emails, maybe they'd have a special offer. And the people who never, they would put everything they wanted to say in the subject line because they knew that they would never click. And anyway, it was ways that they would, the propensity, the likelihood of actually doing something changed how they did the campaigns. And they tried to get people who were very low engagement people to re-engage. And they tried to get people who were high engagement people to buy things or to log in or whatever it is they wanted them to do. And so it's another way of dividing up your emails and segmenting your audience. I mean, it really is quite incredible how industrious marketers are when they try to figure out, like ways in which to improve their marketing, divide up your audience into all sorts of different ways, and just see if you can get one to move up in performance, and then improves your overall marketing. And so, yeah, the one way to do there is to divide your audience up into likely to click and unlikely to click. And then finally, we have web segmentation. And so this is something that we've been working on already. You probably understand most of this, hopefully understand most of these already. But I just want to say that, yeah, so this is done post hoc. You can't really, and it's not like targeting. You can't target your website at people, really. Maybe a bit with your content marketing or something. You can sort of anticipate and try and be ready for a particular segment. But it's more something that's done after the fact, post hoc. You've done your campaign. You've got your website visitors. You have all your data. And now you're going to start being the archaeologist or anthropologist or whatever you are, looking through the data, searching through it, trying to find clues to see who your customers are. And this is what we did yesterday. And I think this is probably the most realistic place to start for most analysts when they are doing audience analytics, they're doing segmentation analysis, is to start looking at what data they already have, trying to figure out who has been their customer in the past, who is likely to be their customer in the future, and then coming up with some idea of work, something that you can do. For example, my desktop and mobile people, but it could also be on a country basis, or it could also be on, I guess, gender or age. You could possibly do that. Or the other one that we haven't looked at, and I only briefly allude to it in one of the exercises, is new versus returning user. And this is an interesting segment, I think, because first of all, it's very easy to do because you have Google Analytics telling you who's new, who's returning. And usually returning visitors outperform new users, but a lot of times they also will like view more pages, or they will view particular pages, or they will do particular things that the new users won't do. And sometimes it can be a good way to sort of see, well, if we get people to view, returning users always seem to go to this product page. And if we can get the new users to go there, well, maybe we can boost them up, make like returning users. Or the other thing you also do is you try to get new users back and turn them into returning users. And this is called retargeting. I don't think we'll go on about that today, but it's basically that idea where you advertise to people who have been on your website. And you're probably familiar with this, where you go and view a pair of shoes. And then everywhere you go on the internet, you see an ad for the exact pair of shoes. Maybe you're familiar with that. And this is what people do in order to turn new visitors into returning visitors and to get them to convert at a higher rate. It's another way of segment analysis. All right, those are really like the main ways that like normal analysts and marketers use. I think the social media targeting is really big. Definitely picking the right keywords on Google search is big, and then doing the web analytics afterwards is big. And email, well, email I would say is I don't know, maybe it used to be more popular, but I think there's still a lot of opportunities there if you can collect enough data on your people. Now let me go into a little bit of the frontiers here. How are we doing on time? We're good on time. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we had this unit done by time we break at 10:30. And I know I'm talking a lot. I know, but it's good. This is good stuff because I think it can really help improve marketing. If you don't have to do everything. Just pick one thing that I know I'm going to try out social media targeting. Or if you're doing social media targeting, do more web analytics. Or if you're already doing all that, have a look at your email database. Okay, these sorts of things, just trying to drive you to do one of these things, and it's shocking. It's shocking how much of a difference it can make to the top line of your marketing performance. But now let me just show you a little bit about where things are going. And this is kind of like the world of advanced segmentation. Oops, sorry, I didn't move on. There was my web segmentation. Sorry, I didn't move on from that. So advanced segmentation there this is the new world of segmentation. This is where the real data nerds are taking over. One thing, this is another one. I think this was from eBay or as a PayPal. I can't remember. Anyway, one of the customers I worked with also did this thing called RFM segmentation. And what that stands for is recency, frequency, and monetization. Okay. And so what that means is that you can look at 3 different variables of your customers. You can look at how recently they've purchased or engaged, how frequently they've purchased or engaged, and their monetary value to you. And from that, you can come up with segments, which really help you decide to go after. You may have, people who are the high spenders, who've spent a lot of money over a particular period. Maybe they've spent very frequently, and then you sort of can carve a bit out and go, wow, they've used to spend a lot of money, but we haven't seen them very often, or I haven't seen them very recently. Or no, this would be, I guess, you have seen them recently. But you have, then another group here might be people at risk of churn, where they've spent a lot, they've made a few purchases, but we haven't seen them in half a year or whatever. And so then, you can divide up your marketing into, so say maybe your big spenders, you just sort of give them, sort of a light offer that sort of says, hey, come back. They're probably already going to be buying because they're big spenders. They buy frequently. They spend a lot and they just need a little bit of a push now and then. Versus people who are risk of churn, who are, used to spend with you, but haven't been, engaging in a while. And maybe they need a bigger offer and they need to have more information or some other way of enticing them. And so This can get really complicated because it's 3 different variables, and so there's many ways that you can chop that up in order to come up with an audience. But it's definitely one way that people in large companies, anyway, they definitely will use this method in order to identify big spenders, little spenders, people who are who come a lot but don't spend. Okay, so people who visit a lot and don't spend, they try and get them over the line. People who have been recently but haven't spent anything, or they're very new customers, and then also, of course, the ones that the marketers always worry about is the risk of churn people here, the people who have not been there for a long time. Okay, and then you have here, they call them the dogs, the people who haven't been there a long time, haven't spent a lot, and they go, time wasters, and what they'll do a lot of times with this is they'll segment their emails, for example, to them, and so that they won't send a lot of emails to dogs because it hurts the overall performance, and there's no point going after people who aren't interested. Very interesting. Okay, segmentation by channel. Need to do this every 4 channels, or 1 or 2 is enough, most effective? I would say, okay, so my view on channels, and we'll go through channels after the break, for sure, is that, you've got to be good at like 1 or 2 channels. And if you're good, if your website is good, I would say website is a very important channel, but you need something that drives something to your website, right? And I would say, like, if your Facebook is working, if your or your Instagram is working, or whatever it is, your emails, you're really good on emails, like that is gold dust. That is what you want to definitely preserve. And then everything else should be kind of an experiment, because what you need to do is find your groove. Where is it that your customers are coming from? And then make sure that they are sort of well taken care of, and then definitely experiment with other channels. But if you're not good at one yet, focus on getting good at one, and find the channel that is driving business. So put a lot of effort into one channel, get one up and running where you're getting good traffic, converting interested people, the right audience. And then once that's up and running, then you can start branching out. But what I see too often is companies use an agency and they go, all right, well, we want to be on, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever. Just post 1 post a day on each of them. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Why? Because they've not built up an audience on any one of those networks. So instead, really focus on one thing. And it could be Google search. It could be email. It could be something that you run yourself. Absolutely. But yeah, the whole thing of just spray and pray is probably not the best way to do channels. And and additionally, it's not a good way to find an audience, right? So if you're trying to get loads of people to your site and trying to get a really specific, trying to see, which audience is outperforming another audience, it's always best to have, a really good control over one channel. So I don't know, if I was to finger in the air, I would say start with Facebook for most brands, unless you're really B2B, and really, target some audiences there and see if you can get engagement from a particular audience, and then, try and get other audiences up to that level. Okay, so yeah. How frequently do we need to do segmentation? Not that frequently. I would say, make it a project. Make it like a 3-month project, and go, right, I'm going to look at the data that I have. I'm going to see that, the desktop users are outperforming, mobile users are outperforming the desktop users. Do a little bit of investigation, try and find, some things you can do to improve the segment. Or it could be country-wise, or it could be, age or gender. It could be anything, where you find that there's a differential, and then make it a project to really work on it, and then measure how well your underperforming segment is, improving. Okay, so it's something that this is analysis that's done over quite a long period of time, because you can't just make a change overnight and all of a sudden your desktop users are going to start converting at 30.35 or whatever it was. It's something that will take weeks and weeks of work, and may take web work. It may take more emails, or more new web content. Any of this stuff could go into it, but it won't be something yet that happens overnight. So do make it a project for sure. But good question. Good question. All right. Here's the real out there way of segmenting, and it's called cluster analysis. And so what you do is you take, first of all, you have to have very clean data. You have to have like, all of your sort of kind of customer names. You may have to have, and actually it could be any data, but it should be stuff that distinguishes people. So things like their demographics, things like their purchase history. Could be psychographics, probably more likely to be things like location and demographics though. And then you put it into the computer, and there's lots of different tools that do this. And you say, right, computer, give me 3 segments. And computer goes and rips through all your data and gives you 3 distinct segments. Okay. For example, here, this is, so yeah, I mean, obviously you can see this is 3 distinct segments there. Here we have one example of where the computer looked at different people's spend, sorry, the annual spend and the annual income of the customer. So I had some demographic information, some behavioral information, and they said, right, computer, give me six segments. And the computer then picked individuals out and said, right, these people, they have low income, but they've been high spenders. Okay, so that's one group. These people have low income and they're low spenders. Okay, well, forget that. We don't want them. These people have high income, but they're sort of kind of medium spenders. And then the computer said, well, these people have sort of medium income and they're both high and low spenders. So anyway, the computer then decides which groups are different. And it does this using very complicated mathematics. It's quite interesting, but it's not something that, that you can do like very easily on your own. It's something that you would need data analytics environment or even a data scientist or somebody who's a real specialist in this stuff, because it's very easy to get wrong and just end up with complete garbage. But it is something that people do because they go, right, I've looked at my mobile people. I've looked at my Malaysia versus Singapore. I've looked at my genders. I've looked at my ages. I've looked at everything. We're doing pretty much the same business all across the board. I need some help. And so you can go to segmentation, clustering, and that can pull out and find you new segments. You may find that Singapore moms on a medium income who are, green living enthusiasts could end up being a segment where you go, I never knew that those combination of traits defined a very high performing segment. This is the sort of thing that could find it. But again, it's not easy, but I just wanted to let you know that it's possible. Most segment analysis can just be done as simply as we just did before. And yeah, you don't normally have to do something like this. This will be something, definitely if you go to like, I don't know, Unilever or something, or, some, Coca-Cola or something like that, they might do this sort of analysis, Amazon or something. But most companies are pretty fine on just doing, just a little bit of spreadsheet work, a little bit of looking at the data, and you can find underperforming segments, do some work on them, and improve your overall marketing. And that's analytics. That's it. That's all you have to do, and you're done. Okay. Yeah. Let's press it on. I just want to burn on. Don't get delayed too much here because we have the using Google Analytics for segmentation. Okay. And if I recall correctly, some of this is going to be play along. So you're going to have to like pull out your Google Analytics now and have a look at it. So how can you segment in Google Analytics? Well, we've done a little bit of this already, but anyway, here's sort of my main list. This is like, there's a lot of ways you can segment in Google Analytics, but here are the ones that really I think matter. Channel, which we'll talk about separately. We'll talk about channel separately because they're kind of their own little magic world of segmentation. You can do it on geography. If you have a multi-country business, you can easily in Google Analytics look at the performance of different countries against each other. Device category, we've seen that already, desktop, mobile. And day of week. Day of week is another dimension in Google Analytics. And you can look, and I think this is a very good segment, actually, most people don't consider, is there are weekend people and weekday people. Yep, they always perform differently, always. People come to your site on weekends always perform differently from people come to your site on weekdays. However, there's also differences in Wednesday people, Thursday people, Monday people, however you want to divide it up. You can come up with all sorts of segments out of the day of the week, and also hour of the day, time of the day, whatever, hour of the day. So if people who are early morning people typically perform differently than evening people. And I have seen one brand in particular, they've exploited this by, if you go on their site in the evening, you always get a 10% discount. I can't remember which one it is right now, but I've gone, aha, somebody has realized that the morning people don't need an incentive and the evening people do. Easy as that, easy as that. And all of a sudden business, perks up. And then I talked about this already, the new versus returning user. Somebody who's been your site before performs differently from somebody who hasn't. Okay, and so you can segment in those ways. And yeah, we've already seen this already because most of the reports use segments. Here we see the United States outperforms everyone by a lot. And I think it's because Google says we only send it to United States or something like that. Or no, they send it to Canada as well. Okay, so we see United States and Canada. We see this very strong segmentation there. In order to get other countries to perform as well as the United States, they would have to ship to these other countries. And who knows, maybe this is something that's holding your business back because for whatever reason, somebody from another country goes to put in their credit card and it wants, some information that only somebody in Malaysia would know, right? And it never occurred to you this might be a problem until you look at this chart and you say, wow, everyone's buying from Malaysia and no one's buying from any other country. Maybe there's something wrong with this. And this could be something that comes up with segmentation analysis, certainly. But we don't want to be stuck in report world. We don't want to be stuck just in using reports for segmentation. We want to be able to see segments wherever we want to see them. And luckily, Google lets us do this very easily. Now, this is a little bit of a special feature of Google Analytics. It's called adding a segment. But I think the most important part of this exercise and the exercises that we'll do in a moment is that it gets you thinking about what it's like to do segment analysis. Whether or not you use Google is almost immaterial, because if you just start thinking in terms of segments and you start analyzing any of the marketing metrics you have, your email results, your Facebook ad results, your any other marketing you may do, if you think, well, it might be a good idea, let me drag out my segmentation tool here, and it can help you in any way. But Google Analytics makes it very easy to do and very easy for me to do it online with you. So it's a really good tool for this sort of workshop. But I just want to get you the mentality of it. I'm not going to force you to memorize the details. I think we'll figure it out together on how to do it. But once you get it set up, it can be really useful for doing your marketing. Just this tool can be useful for doing marketing analysis, whether or not you use Google Analytics. Okay, so what we do is here we're just an audience overview in any report, except for real time. Stay away from real time. And we just click on add a segment. Okay, so maybe you didn't notice it before, but here we're looking, this blue is all users, and it's always all users in Google Analytics. But if we click on add a segment, it will open up this little box. And what this box tells us is that there are all sorts of segments available to us. Now, we can make our own segments. It's possible, but we're not going to do that today. It's a little bit too complicated. Instead, let's just use Google's segment. And what we'll do is, and actually, I'll run through this live in a minute, just so you can see it again. But let me just do the slides. What you do is you add mobile traffic segment. You just tick on it. And tablet and desktop segment. Tick on that, and then click on apply. And suddenly, we see the site completely differently. We no longer just see all users. We see mobile traffic in orange and tablet and desktop traffic in green. And we get all of the reports and all of the statistics and all of the charts in Google Analytics, or almost all the charts, divided up according to the different segments. So for example, we see here that purchase completed, we have 102 for all users, but we see that 65 of them were mobile traffic and 37 of them were desktop. Okay, we've seen the data differently. We look at the purchase completed rate, 0.15% for all users, but we see that enormous gap there, the 0.38% for mobile traffic, 0.07% for tablet and desktop traffic, et cetera, et cetera. And all through the different reports, we will see this information. Okay. Then we can go around and surf all sorts of different reports. We can go to the channels report and go, are there any insights into why mobile might convert more than desktop? I used to see something here. I can't remember what it was. Oh, we see that, mobile users tend to use organic search a lot. Okay. So maybe we get an insight from this that mobile traffic, because they use organic search a lot, we see that they use it 66% or something of the mobile traffic is from, organic search is mobile traffic. So 66% of mobile traffic is organic search. Maybe because they use organic search a lot and they come in from search, that it's a much better way to get them to convert. And so here we even see there, wow, they have a higher conversion rate on organic search than they do on overall. And we go, wow, so maybe organic search is a really good channel for us and we should work more on our search engine optimization or whatever. But it's just to generate ideas. That's what this kind of exploratory analysis is for. We're just doing some segment analysis to try and find some ideas for how we might improve our marketing overall. Okay. It's very hard to do it without doing this sort of analysis. Okay, or we could look at landing pages and we see that, that tablet and desktop traffic, 55% of the tablet and desktop traffic lands on home, whereas only 32% of mobile traffic does. And so maybe mobile traffic is outperforming desktop traffic because they tend to come on deep links. They tend to come into the site at a deeper level, not at the homepage. And maybe our homepage stinks and our homepage is turning away loads of people. And we should look at our homepage and go, well, a lot of people from desktop and tablet seem to come to our main page. And maybe our main page, all it says is, it's got the pictures of the staff, jumping up and down and saying hooray, and says nothing about our products. And maybe people don't even know what it is we sell. Like all these things are possible. That actually is a real case of one company that had a little bit of a problem with bounce rate because all they showed was pictures of their company when everyone wanted to see their products. That was it. So anyway, this sort of analysis can help you do this. Do you have anything more here? Oh, yes. So importantly, and this is important for our exercises because you're going to be adding a segment and then you'll be removing it later, is that you have to click on the segment, this little chevron thing here, and click on remove to get rid of it, or you can drag and drop it, or you can untick it, but you have to, you will want to get rid of it at some point. Okay? So you can add them and remove them as many times as you want. And importantly, it doesn't change the database or anything like that. It is just a view on your data. You are going like, right, I'm an analyst. I'm going to analyze mobile users, and I'm going to try and find out why it is they are converting more. I'm going to add my mobile traffic segment, and I'm going to click all around Google Analytics and look for reasons why mobile traffic might be converting better. But then when I'm done, I just want to get rid of it, and I want to go back to my all users only segment. So you can add them to do your little analysis and then remove them. Okay. And here is a list of the pre-configured segments. I believe, if I'm not wrong, we will be using search traffic and maybe one other. I can't remember. But anyway, there's your list here. You have your notes now. So I just wanted to show you because it's a little bit hard to see in Google Analytics. A little bit hard to see. All right, let me switch over to my browser. We may not be able to finish all our exercises. I'm not going to rush this because this is, to be honest, there's two main things today, the audience and the channel. I don't want to rush these because I think these are super important for people to actually make a material impact in the business. Conversion analytics is interesting if you're in e-commerce, and the operational analytics is just a little bit more information about how you might use analytics. at your company. But these two things are essential. You have to do these. You have to do these if you want to succeed in digital marketing. You have to do audience analytics, and you have to do channel analytics, undoubtedly, no matter what company you work for. And so, yeah, I'm not going to rush you. So let me just go to my browser here. Where am I? There we go. Oh, it's shrunk. Okay, let me just get it a little bit bigger again. There we go. And maybe. Okay. All right. Here I am on my, oh, I'm in custom reports. This is for later. Sorry. Let me just go to my audience overview. And here I have my segments. There we are. So all users is a segment. It's a segment of everyone. Segment of one. Segment of everyone, I guess, really. And we want to add a segment because I want to see mobile users, for example. Okay. So I'm going to go into here. I see my mobile traffic segment. I click on apply. And suddenly my world has changed. My world has changed. Okay. For the exercises, we're only going to do one segment at a time, so don't worry about having multiple segments. Now I get to see everything through the world of mobile segments. I get to see, I don't know, let's have a look at locations. I now see United States, all traffic. Oops, I got to open it up a little bit here, or maybe I need to shrink it. Hold on one second. Can I shrink it? Yes, there we go. United States, all mobile traffic converts at 6.62% in the United States. Okay, I get to see how mobile traffic performs on each country level. If I go to my channels, I can see how mobile traffic performs on each of the different channels. Oops, don't forget, yep, September 1st to September 30th. Don't want to forget that for the exercises. If I go to my conversions, oops, sorry, down here, conversions, that behavior, I can see what was the registration rate for people on mobile devices. Let's have a look. I go to my conversions. I go up here, I select my registrations. And I see there were 140 registrations in September on mobile devices. And that is, wow, that is a 1% conversion rate. Much better than the site average as a whole. People on mobile devices, I would have actually thought they would have been less likely. More likely to buy, less likely to register, but I was wrong. Okay. So this is what segment analysis can do. It can help you identify all sorts of different traits about what people are doing depending on what the segment is. And then you come up with ideas of how to either improve things or come up with ideas of how to improve the people who aren't in that segment and get them up to the level of your segment. That is it. That's analytics. That's what it's all about. Okay, enough talking. Boy, I've talked a lot today. And we're still going to take a break at 10:30, but why don't let's get started with the first exercise. Now I had to put on a new exercise. I had to put in a new URL because it wouldn't let me just add the questions. So let me put the URL here. It's just MMAE2. It's MMAE2. And I haven't started it yet, but let me just start it because I'm probably going to put extra time on this one. Let me put a bunch of time on this one. Okay. Oops, not that one. One second, bear with me. Okay, so I'm going to launch this now. So hopefully you're at MMAE2, crowd.live, MMAE2, just that link in the chat. And asked me 3 times to start. Yes, I've started. Okay, so I put 4 minutes on it. Now, what we're going to do is there is you can see at the start there, Is it letting me? It is, okay. Goals overview. That's the report that you need to go to. And then what I've done is I've capitalized the segment. So first of all, add the segment, then go to goals overview and try to figure out the answer. What percentage of that segment completed goal 1 purchase completed, okay? And what I'm gonna do is, really try to get this doing. And this is not just for you to learn Google Analytics. You could do, I do another course for that actually. But this is really about you getting around the idea of looking at the world through a segment, okay? So do try to get this to work and give you a few minutes. Just put on a little soft jazz to get us through. Oops, a bit loud. And then let's see how you're doing after a few minutes. Okay, I see people are struggling a bit, so I tell you what we'll do is let me walk through this one with you. And then I'll go on to the next one, which is similar. But let's see, I'm gonna end this one now. Wait a minute, a second here. And I'll do a walkthrough of this, but we'll give the people credit who got it because a few people did get it. Well, let's just see, what do people think? So, okay, majority thinks that it was 0.21%, the percentage of surf traffic which completed goal 1 purchase completed. Okay, so let me just go back to my browser here. So we want to go and look at, we want to go and mobile traffic, no, bad. Okay, we want to get rid of that, remove. And I'm going to add a segment, and it's going to be called search traffic. Okay. And we see that search traffic is quite complicated. We won't worry about what that means right now. Maybe I'll talk about it later. But here we have search traffic, and we see that search traffic is overall 40.11% of goal completions. But that's not what we want to know. We want to know what percentage of search traffic purchased something. Okay, what percentage of search traffic completed goal 1? And we are right now, we're on goal 3. So that's the wrong goal. So we need to change it to goal 1. And we see that overall, we had 0.14% of people who completed purchase completed in the month of September. Always check the month here. But for search traffic, we had 0.21. So we had a little bit more, a higher conversion rate, or maybe quite 50% higher conversion rate, I guess, in some ways, of people from search traffic. So that's an interesting result, an interesting segment. So we see that search traffic tend to produce better results for us than overall. And so the answer then, if we go back to the quiz, there we go. And that was correct. Okay. All right. Let me move on to the next one. I will set it at, let's see. Let me see if it is. Okay, there we go. And I put it at 2. Let me put it at 3 because that'll take us up to the break anyway. Okay. So question 2 there. Yeah. How much revenue did we get from search traffic? How much revenue did we get from search traffic? See if you can figure this one out. And then we'll have a break. All right. How much revenue did we get from search traffic? Now, it is possible to see if you could go up to your channels report and go, hey, I'm just going to look at organic search. However, search traffic can be from more places than organic search. Okay. So it's a slightly different segment. So I wouldn't do it that way. I would definitely do it the way that we just did before. Let's see how we did here. We have just over half. Just over half reckons we made $2,574.71 from search traffic. Well, let's have a look and see how we might figure that out. So remember, I'm just going to do this again. So let me just start from the beginning. And what I'll do is I'm going to add a segment called search traffic. And actually, what you can do, you can even remove your all users if you want, but I won't. I'll just leave it. And there we go. We're seeing search traffic, and we're seeing the conversion rate. Now, purchase completed, remember, is a goal. And all goals do is count. They don't actually add up. In order to find out how much money we made, we need to go to e-commerce. And if we go over to e-commerce overview, we will then see that we made $3,096.41 in the month of September. Out of that, $2,574.71 came from search traffic. So not only did we have a higher conversion rate, but we made almost all of our money from search as well. So again, this is just to give you some idea of what segment analysis is like. It's to get you sort of actually, clicking and looking and thinking about it. So that when you go to approach your own marketing problems, whether or not you're using Google Analytics, you start going, I wonder how this looks for people who came from this channel or for people who came from a particular demographic or whatever. Okay. All right. Let's take a break now. Let's take a break. Let me go back to the quiz really quickly and just make sure we've the correct answer. There we go. Oh, it says they're all wrong. Hold on. I've done this before where it's not liked me because I switched it too fast. There we go. There we go. Excellent. Okay. All right. So let me put the timer on. Let me open my timer. And okay, there we go. 30 minutes. So we'll see you back after the break. We'll finish up a couple of these exercises, but then we'll dive straight more into the channel analytics. Okay. So see you back in a few. Thanks very much.